A woman paid the 8-year-old black girl to stop a wedding, but the confused little girl burst into the wrong ceremony at the same church, shouting, "Stop!" What happened next shocked everyone. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Sarah Mitchell's hands trembled as she pressed 3 crisp $100 bills into the small palm of 8-year-old Lily Johnson. The autumn sunlight filtered through the oak trees of Riverside Park in downtown Boston, casting dancing shadows across the young girl's curious face. "You remember what I told you, sweetie?" "Remember," Sarah whispered, kneeling down to meet Lily's bright brown eyes. "St. Catherine's Church, 2 o'clock. When the priest asks if anyone objects, you stand up and say those exact words." Lily nodded solemnly, clutching the money against her worn pink jacket. "I remember, Miss Sarah. I object because Marcus doesn't really love her." Then I run out fast. Sarah's heart clenched with guilt, but the image of Marcus, her Marcus, marrying that woman drove away any hesitation. They'd been together for 5 beautiful years before his family's pressure and that scheming Rebecca entered his life. This wedding couldn't happen. It just couldn't. "That's perfect, honey. Your mama will never know, and you'll help me save someone from making a terrible mistake." Sarah forced a smile, fighting back tears. "You're doing a good thing." As Lily skipped away toward the church 6 blocks down, Sarah wondered if she'd truly lost her mind, hiring a child to disrupt a wedding. What had heartbreak reduced her to? But desperate times called for desperate measures, and she'd already lost everything else. Her dignity could wait. At exactly 1:47 p.m., Lily pushed through the heavy wooden doors of St. Catherine's Church. The massive stone building was even more beautiful than she'd imagined, with stained glass windows painting rainbow patterns across the polished pews. Organ music swelled through the space, and well-dressed people chatted quietly, waiting for the ceremony to begin. But something felt wrong. Lily frowned, studying the guests. Miss Sarah had described Marcus's family, his mother with the silver hair, his 3 brothers in matching suits. Lily scanned the crowd nervously. She didn't see anyone matching those descriptions. "Maybe they're late," she whispered to herself, sliding into a back pew. The money crinkled in her pocket, reminding her of what Mama could do with $300. New winter coats, the electric bill, maybe even that doll Lily had been wanting. At precisely 2 o'clock, the organ thundered the wedding march. Everyone rose, and Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. A stunning woman in an elaborate white gown glided down the aisle, her veil trailing behind her like a cloud. At the altar stood a tall, silver-haired man in an impeccable tuxedo, probably in his mid-40s, Lily guessed, watching his bride approach with an expression that seemed more resigned than joyful. "That doesn't look like the pictures Miss Sarah showed me," Lily muttered, confused, "but maybe people look different all dressed up." The ceremony proceeded. Father O'Brien's deep voice resonated through the church as he recited the traditional vows. Lily's palms grew sweaty. This was it. This was her moment. "If anyone here knows of any reason why these 2 should not be joined in holy matrimony," Father O'Brien intoned, "speak now, or forever hold your peace." The silence stretched like taffy. Lily's stomach twisted into knots. Something whispered this wasn't right, but the money in her pocket felt heavy with responsibility. Mama needed it. They needed it. She stood up. "I object." Lily's voice rang out, small but clear, echoing off the vaulted ceiling. 300 heads swiveled in unison. Gasps rippled through the congregation like wind through wheat. The bride, a woman with sharp, perfect features and cold blue eyes, froze mid-step, her bouquet trembling in her grip. "I object because—" Lily's voice faltered as she noticed the bride's face. This definitely wasn't the woman from Miss Sarah's photos. This woman was older, harder, with eyes like chips of ice. "Because Marcus doesn't really love her." The confusion in her own voice made it sound like a question rather than a statement. "Who the hell is Marcus?" the groom demanded, his commanding voice cutting through the shocked murmurs. "I'm Richard Thornton, and who is this child?" Lily's blood turned to ice water. Wrong wedding, wrong church, wrong people. I'm sorry, Lily stammered, backing toward the door. "I made a mistake. I'm so sorry." She turned and ran, her sneakers squeaking against the marble floor. Behind her, chaos erupted, shouting voices, the bride's shrill scream of fury, running footsteps. But just before Lily burst through the church doors, she heard the bride's voice, sharp as a knife's edge. "Find that little girl. I don't care what it takes. Find her." And in that moment, Lily's biggest problem wasn't explaining this disaster to Miss Sarah. It was the murderous look she'd glimpsed in the bride's eyes just before she'd run. A look that promised this mistake would cost far more than $300 could ever cover. Lily's lungs burned as she ran down Boylston Street. Wrong wedding. Wrong church. What had she done? She ducked into an alley, pressing against the cold brick wall. That woman's eyes, so cold, so angry. Miss Sarah would know what to do, but Lily had no phone, and the nearest payphone was back toward the church, toward danger. Inside St. Catherine's, Richard Thornton stood frozen at the altar. Victoria, his bride, had transformed into something terrifying, her face contorted with rage. "Find her, Anthony," Victoria hissed to a thick-necked man in a black suit. "Find that child within the hour." "Victoria, she's just a confused little girl," Richard said. "She got the wrong church. Then why did she say those words?" Victoria's false sweetness made his skin crawl. "Richard, darling, someone's trying to embarrass you. We should cancel this wedding." The words came out before he could stop them, but they felt right. More right than anything had felt in months. Victoria's mask shattered completely. "What? Something's not right here." Richard stepped back, studying the woman he'd almost married. How had grief made him so blind? "I think we need time to reconsider." "You're making a mistake, Richard. A very expensive mistake." As Richard walked down the aisle, leaving chaos behind, he didn't see Victoria's murderous expression. But Father O'Brien did, and he whispered a prayer for whoever had just become that woman's enemy. Sarah paced her apartment, checking her phone constantly. Lily should have called by now. Marcus would realize his mistake. Everything would be fine. The knock made her jump. "Lily!" But when she opened the door, her stomach dropped. Lily stood crying, her jacket torn, face streaked with tears. "Miss Sarah, I messed up so bad." The little girl collapsed into her arms. "I stopped the wrong wedding, wrong people, and the bride, she looked at me like she wanted to hurt me." Sarah's blood turned cold. "What do you mean, wrong wedding?" Between sobs, Lily explained everything. The man named Richard, the older bride, the threat. "Oh God, what have I done?" Sarah pulled Lily inside, locking the door. "What have I done to you?" 3 miles away, Anthony Russo made phone calls from his BMW. "Yeah, I got her description. Little black girl, 8 years old, pink jacket, $5,000 to whoever finds her first." Odd in a Mercedes 3 cars back, Richard Thornton heard every word through the cracked window. He pulled out his phone. "Jack, I need you to find a little girl before some very bad people do." Grace Johnson arrived an hour later, her fury palpable. "You gave my daughter $300 to disrupt a wedding. Are you insane?" "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered. "I wasn't thinking." "No, you weren't." Grace pulled Lily close. "And now she's in danger." A sharp knock froze them all. "Sarah Mitchell, my name is Richard Thornton. We need to talk. I'm the only thing standing between that little girl and some very dangerous people." Richard looked nothing like the wealthy groom when he entered. His tie was loose, his expression grave but kind. "I'm not pressing charges," he said, sitting carefully. He looked at Lily. "That was brave, even if it wasn't the wedding you intended." "I'm so sorry, sir," Lily whispered. "You didn't ruin anything. You may have saved my life." Richard pulled out his phone, showing them a photo of a smiling woman. "6 months ago, my wife Patricia died of a sudden heart attack. She was 42, healthy. It never made sense." He paused. 3 months later, Victoria Castellano came into my life. She seemed perfect, understanding, attentive, but my security team started noticing things. Her background didn't add up. "What did you find?" Sarah asked. "Victoria's been married 3 times before. All 3 husbands died within a year, all from sudden heart attacks. All were wealthy men with no family. All changed their wills right before dying, leaving everything to Victoria." Grace gasped. "She was going to kill you." "I believe so. I've been gathering evidence for weeks, stalling the wedding. But today, Lily gave me the perfect excuse to call it off." "Then why are we in danger?" Grace demanded. "Because Victoria doesn't know that I know, and she thinks Lily knows something. She sent people to find her, people who won't be gentle." Richard leaned forward. "You need to come with me, now. I have a secure property where you'll be safe." "We can't just leave," Sarah protested. "We have jobs, responsibilities, and none of that matters if you're dead." Richard's bluntness cut through the room. "Trust me, and I'll keep you safe. Stay here, and by tomorrow, Victoria's people will find you." Grace looked at her frightened daughter, then back at Richard. "How long do we have? We should leave now." Outside, Anthony Russo watched through binoculars. He'd followed Thornton straight to the girl. He dialed Victoria. "Found them. Thornton's with them." Victoria's voice came cold and clear. "Follow them, and Anthony, when the opportunity presents itself, make sure that little girl has an unfortunate accident. Children are so careless near streets." Anthony smiled. "Consider it done." Richard's estate in Concord was massive. 20 acres, security fences, cameras everywhere. The house glowed like a fairy tale in the darkness. "This is where you live?" Lily gasped. "One of the places," Richard said gently. "I maintain this property for situations exactly like this." Mrs. Chen, Richard's housekeeper, showed them to comfortable rooms. For the first time since the church, Lily smiled at the mention of fresh cookies. 2 hours later, Sarah sat with Richard in his study. "I was stupid," she began. "My boyfriend Marcus was marrying someone else today. I couldn't handle not being chosen. I hired Lily to disrupt it." "Love makes us do irrational things," Richard said, pouring brandy. "It wasn't even about love anymore. It was about not being good enough. I'm 30, living in a tiny apartment. His new wife has money, connections. How could I compete?" "You weren't supposed to compete. If he chose her, he wasn't worth having." Sarah laughed bitterly. "That's philosophical from a man who almost married a serial killer." "Touché." Richard pulled out a thick folder. "Victoria's after my entire estate, $4.3 billion. Sarah nearly choked. "Billion?" "Jack's been building a case, but it's all circumstantial. We know she's dangerous, but proving it is different." He showed her photos of Victoria entering pharmaceutical companies, meeting with a disbarred chemist. "We think she uses a rare poison that mimics heart attacks." Jack entered, his expression grim. "We have a problem. Anthony Russo was spotted 3 miles from here. He's getting close." "Then we don't wait," Richard decided. "We draw Victoria out. I'll contact her, say I want to reschedule the wedding. She'll jump at the chance, and she might get careless." "Or kill you faster," Jack pointed out. "That's where you come in." Richard turned to Sarah. "Tomorrow, go back to Boston. Return to normal. Victoria's people will watch you, draw their attention from Lily and Grace." "What do you need me to do?" Sarah asked. "Help me catch her. Help me keep that little girl safe." Jack drove Sarah back to Boston the next morning. "Anyone suspicious, call immediately," he said, handing her a burner phone. "Don't be brave." Sarah's apartment felt violated. Every person on the street seemed suspicious. An hour later, someone knocked. "Ms. Mitchell, Detective Lisa Torres, Boston PD. I need to ask about the church incident. Sarah checked the peephole, a woman with a badge. But Richard had warned her. Anyone could fake credentials. Can you slide your ID under the door? A business card appeared. Sarah called Jack's burner phone. Someone claiming to be a detective is here. Give me 30 seconds. Typing sounds. Lisa Torres is real homicide division, but that doesn't mean it's actually her. Ask something specific. Detective, what was the groom's name yesterday? Richard Jonathan Thornton. The bride filed a harassment complaint. You know the bride. Sarah realized her mistake. She'd revealed too much. I'm not feeling well. If you want to talk, call my attorney. She gave Richard's office number. Your attorney? The detective sounded very interested. Ms. Mitchell, are you in trouble? Just being careful. Thank you, detective. The burner buzzed with Jack's text. Torres is real, but now she's very interested. Just painted a target on your back. At the estate, Grace tried focusing on Lily's homework, but her mind spun. Mama, is Victoria going to hurt us? Lily asked. I don't know, baby, but Mr. Thornton is keeping us safe. Mrs. Chen appeared. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Thornton wants to speak with you. Richard stood at the window. Please sit. I need to discuss next steps. Is Lily in more danger? Grace asked bluntly. Yes, Victoria's escalating. She filed a police complaint. She's controlling the narrative. Richard leaned forward. I want to move you and Lily out of the country, temporarily. I have contacts in London, secure apartment, excellent schools, a job for you. Everything arranged. New identities until Victoria's arrested. Grace stared at him. You want us to flee? Leave everything? I want you alive. Victoria's proven she can get close. If something happens to Lily now, Victoria can claim it was unrelated. She's just a concerned citizen. He slid a folder across. This isn't fair, but I'm offering you a way to keep Lily safe. What about you? This has to end. I've spent 6 months grieving my wife, and now I'm discovering she may have been murdered. Someone has to stop Victoria. Grace closed her eyes. Leave everything, their tiny apartment, their neighborhood, their church. Then she remembered those cold eyes, the promise of violence. When would we leave? Tomorrow morning. Private jet at Hanscom Field. I need to think about it. You have until tonight. After that, the window closes. Walking back to Lily, Grace's mind churned with impossible choices. Run or stay, safety or home. Watching Lily read peacefully, the decision crystallized. They would run, they would survive, and someday they'd come home. But first, they had to survive the next 24 hours. That evening, Richard's study became a war room. Jack spread surveillance photos everywhere. Sarah returned from Boston, shaken. Victoria's made her move, Jack announced. She met with Anthony 3 hours ago. We got audio. He pressed play. Victoria's voice cut through. I don't care about Thornton anymore. He's cost me everything. I want everyone involved to pay, starting with that little girl. Anthony's voice. The estate's locked down tight. Then make them come to us. Find the mother's weak point. Family, friends, grab them. She'll bring the girl out to save them. And if she doesn't, then we hurt the hostage until she does. The recording stopped. Heavy silence. That's conspiracy to commit kidnapping, Sarah whispered. Obtained illegally. Inadmissible in court, Richard said grimly. Who cares about court? Grace burst out. We have proof she's planning to kidnap someone. Who's at risk? Grace's mind raced through her small circle. Denise, my sister in Atlanta. They'll go after Denise. Are you close? Richard asked. Close enough. She calls every Sunday. Don't call her, Jack warned. If Victoria's monitoring, you'll confirm she's the target. Then what? We get to her first. Jack was already typing. Give me her address. 90 minutes later, Jack had coordinated with Atlanta security. Denise and her children were picked up, told only that Grace was in trouble. Now she was on a plane to Boston, confused but secure. She's going to have questions, Grace said. And you'll answer them, Richard assured. But right now, she's safe. Victoria's lost her leverage. Unless she finds someone else. Sarah spoke up. What about my connections? I started this. Parents? Jack asked. Maine, we're not close. Siblings? Military, stationed in Germany. Marcus? Sarah flinched. What about him? You were together 5 years. Victoria could use him to get to you, and through you to Lily. Marcus got married yesterday. He's probably on his honeymoon, completely unaware. Where was the honeymoon? Richard asked sharply. The Wheatley resort in the Berkshires. Why? Richard and Jack exchanged looks. Because Victoria knows about Marcus. She's had you investigated. She knows everything, your job, your friends, your failed relationship, and she knows exactly where Marcus is. The implications hung heavy. Oh, God. Sarah stood abruptly. She's going to hurt him to get to me. Jack, get a team to the Wheatley, Richard ordered. If Marcus is in danger, extract him. Please, Sarah grabbed Jack's arm. I know he left me, but he doesn't deserve to die because of my mistake. At the Wheatley resort, Marcus Bennett watched his new wife Rebecca prepare for dinner. He should be happy. He'd just married the right woman from the right family. Everything his parents wanted, so why did he feel so empty? Walking to the restaurant, Marcus noticed a man in a dark suit watching them. Not hotel staff. Something about him screamed security. Rebecca, did you see that guy? What guy? She was on her phone, distracted. Marcus shook off the paranoia, stress from the wedding, guilt about Sarah. 5 years together ended with barely an explanation. His parents had made it clear Rebecca was the right choice. Sarah, with her tiny apartment and modest salary, didn't fit the life they'd planned. He'd been a coward. He knew it. Mr. Bennett? A woman in a business suit approached. Agent Morrison, FBI, you and your wife need to come with me immediately. You're in danger. This is ridiculous, Rebecca snapped. Marcus, tell her to leave. But Marcus saw the agent's dead serious face. Behind her, another man scanned the room for threats. What kind of danger? The kind with no time for explanations. Move, now. A crash from the restaurant. Screams erupted. Through the glass, Marcus saw chaos. Overturned tables, people running, a thick man in a black jacket shoving through, his hand moving under his coat toward a weapon. Move! Agent Morrison grabbed them both, propelling them toward the emergency exit. They burst through into cold air. Behind them, gunshots. Loud, unmistakable, terrifying. His honeymoon had become a crime scene, and somehow Marcus knew with crystal clarity this had something to do with Sarah. What had happened since he'd walked away? Had he made the biggest mistake of his life choosing Rebecca over the woman who'd never have put him in danger? Marcus and Rebecca arrived at the Concord estate near midnight, escorted by Jack's team. Rebecca was hysterical, demanding explanations and threatening lawsuits. Marcus was silent, his mind churning. When they entered the main hall, he froze. Sarah stood at the top of the stairs, her face pale with shock. Marcus. Her voice barely a whisper. Sarah, what are you... He stopped, pieces clicking into place. The little girl at the church, the disrupted wedding. Oh my God, you did this. I can explain. You hired someone to ruin my wedding. Marcus's voice rose. You put me and Rebecca in danger because you couldn't accept that we were over. That's not what happened. Sarah rushed down the stairs. I made a mistake, yes, but I never meant for any of this. Who is this woman? Rebecca screeched. Marcus, do you know her? She's my ex-girlfriend, Marcus said quietly, and apparently she's insane. The slap echoed through the hall before anyone could react. Sarah's hand connected with Marcus's cheek, leaving a red mark. I made one stupid mistake out of heartbreak. Sarah's voice shook with fury. You made a calculated choice to abandon someone who loved you for 5 years because your parents told you to. Don't you dare call me insane. Richard stepped between them. Enough, both of you. We have bigger problems than your failed relationship. In the study, Richard explained everything to Marcus and Rebecca. Victoria's pattern, the murdered husbands, the threat to Lily. Rebecca's hysteria transformed into white-faced terror. Marcus listened, his lawyer's mind processing information rapidly. So this woman Victoria thought your disruption was a targeted attack? Marcus asked Sarah. And now she's coming after everyone connected to you? Yes, Sarah said quietly, unable to meet his eyes. Jesus Christ! Marcus ran his hands through his hair. Rebecca and I were almost killed tonight because you couldn't let go. That's not fair, Grace spoke up from the doorway. She'd been listening, Lily asleep upstairs. My daughter made an innocent mistake. Victoria's the one who turned it deadly. Don't you dare blame Sarah for that monster's actions. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Grace's fierce maternal protection reminded him of something he'd lost when he chose status over substance. He looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and saw the guilt eating her alive. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. This situation is it's a lot. We need to focus on stopping Victoria, Richard interrupted. Jack, what's the status on tracking her movements? She's gone underground. No credit card usage, no phone signals. She knows we're watching. Jack pulled up surveillance footage on a tablet. But Anthony Russo isn't as careful. We've tracked him to a warehouse in Revere. We think that's her base of operations. Can we raid it? Marcus asked. Not without evidence linking her to a specific crime. Everything we have is circumstantial. Richard's frustration was evident. We need to catch her in the act. Or get a confession, Sarah suggested. What if someone wore a wire, met with her, got her to admit what she's done? Who? Jack challenged. She's not going to confess to a stranger. Me. Richard stood. I'll contact her, tell her I've reconsidered, that I want to work things out. That's suicide, Grace protested. No, Richard said firmly. It's the only way to end this. Denise Johnson arrived at dawn, furious and terrified. She stormed into the estate demanding answers, her 3 children clinging to her sides. Grace met her in the foyer. Denise, I'm so sorry. Sorry? Sorry? Denise's voice could have stripped paint. I was dragged out of my home by armed men, told my sister was in danger, put on a plane with my babies, and you're sorry. Let me explain. Grace led her to a private sitting room while Mrs. Chen took the children for breakfast. Once alone, Grace told her everything. Lily's mistake, Victoria's threat, Richard's protection. Denise listened, her expression shifting from fury to horror to disbelief. You're telling me my niece accidentally saved a billionaire from a serial killer, and now we're all hiding from a psychopath? Yes. Grace, what the hell? Denise started pacing. How did your life spiral this far out of control? I don't know. Grace's composure finally cracked. One day we're normal people living normal lives, and the next we're running from a murderer. I'm doing the best I can. Denise stopped, seeing her sister's exhaustion. She pulled Grace into a hug. Okay, we'll figure this out. We always do. Richard wants to send us to London, Grace whispered. New identities, new lives. He says it's the only way to keep Lily safe. London? Denise pulled back. Grace, that's extreme. I know, but he's right. If we stay, Victoria will find us eventually, and when she does... Grace couldn't finish the thought. What does Lily think? I haven't told her yet. How do I tell my 8-year-old daughter that we have to disappear, that she can't see her friends, her school, her home? You tell her the truth, Denise said softly, that you're keeping her safe. That's all kids really need to know, that their mama's got them. Upstairs, Lily sat with Denise's children in the playroom Mrs. Chen had prepared. Her cousins, 10-year-old Jordan, 7-year-old Maya, and 5-year-old Tyler, peppered her with questions about the big adventure. "Aunt Grace said you helped catch a bad guy," Jordan said, his eyes wide. "I didn't mean to," Lily admitted. "I just made a mistake, a big mistake." "But you stopped a wedding!" Maya bounced excitedly. "Like in the movies. Was it romantic?" "It was scary," Lily said quietly. "The lady, the bride, she looked at me like she wanted to hurt me. And now everyone's in trouble because of me." "It's not your fault," Jordan said with the wisdom of a 10-year-old trying to be grown up. "Bad guys are going to be bad guys no matter what. You just got caught in the middle." Lily wanted to believe him, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Victoria's face, cold, calculating, murderous. Downstairs, Richard made the call he'd been dreading. "Victoria, it's Richard. We need to talk." Victoria's voice came through smooth as silk and twice as deadly. "Richard, I wondered when you'd call." "I made a mistake at the church," Richard said, aware that Jack was recording every word. "I overreacted. The stress, the public disruption, I wasn't thinking clearly." "Is that so?" Victoria's skepticism was palpable. "I miss you. I miss what we had." The lies tasted like ash. "Can we meet? Talk this through?" A long pause. "You cancelled our wedding in front of 200 people, Richard. You humiliated me. Why should I believe you want to reconcile?" "Because I'm lonely. Because Patricia's been gone 6 months, and you made me feel alive again." He injected genuine emotion into his voice, not for Victoria, but remembering his late wife. "Please, just coffee, that's all I'm asking." Another pause, longer this time. Richard could almost hear her calculating, weighing the risks against the potential reward. $4 billion was a lot of motivation. "Fine. Tomorrow, noon, the Thinking Cup on Tremont Street. Public place, you come alone. I'll be there." The line went dead. Jack stopped the recording. "She agreed faster than I expected." "She's confident," Richard said grimly. "She thinks she's in control. Or she's planning to kill you in broad daylight and make it look natural." Jack's concern was obvious. "Boss, this is dangerous." "Even wired, even with my team watching. If she uses that poison, then make sure you have naloxone ready. Make sure the hospital knows to test for exotic toxins." Richard met his security chief's eyes. "This ends tomorrow, Jack, one way or another." That evening, Sarah found Marcus alone in the library. Rebecca had gone to bed with a sleeping pill, unable to cope with the stress. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Sarah said from the doorway, "but I need you to know. I never wanted you hurt. I just wanted you to see that Rebecca wasn't right for you." Marcus looked up from the book he wasn't really reading. "Was I right for you, Sarah?" The question surprised her. "What? 5 years together, were you happy, or were you just holding on because letting go meant admitting failure?" Sarah moved into the room, sitting in a chair across from him. "I was happy, most of the time. But I also knew, deep down, that your family would never accept me. That eventually you'd have to choose between us." "I chose wrong," Marcus said quietly. "Did you?" Sarah studied his face. "You married Rebecca. She's everything your parents wanted." "She's everything they wanted," Marcus agreed. "But what about what I wanted? What about happiness, Sarah? Real happiness, not the kind that looks good in Christmas cards. Is Rebecca really that bad?" Marcus laughed without humor. "She spent the last 24 hours complaining about the thread count of the sheets here and demanding Richard compensate her for the trauma of the attack. Meanwhile, you've been trying to fix your mistake and keep people safe. I'm not a saint, Marcus. I hired a child to disrupt your wedding." "Yeah, you did, and it was petty and wrong and stupid." He leaned forward. "But it also came from hurt, not malice. Rebecca would have done it for sport." They sat in silence for a moment. "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah finally asked. Because tomorrow Richard might die trying to stop a serial killer, because we almost died tonight, because life's too short to pretend we made the right choices when we didn't. Marcus stood, moving to the window. I loved you, Sarah, I still do. And I threw it away, because I was too weak to stand up to my parents. Marcus, Rebecca and we're getting it annulled. As soon as this is over, I'm done. With her, with my parents' expectations, with living a life that isn't mine. He turned to face her. I'm not asking you to take me back. I don't deserve that. But I need you to know you were right about everything. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. This doesn't fix what you did. I know, but maybe it's a start. He moved toward the door, pausing. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. After he left, Sarah sat alone in the library, crying for the first time since this nightmare began, not from fear or guilt, but from grief for what might have been. Richard couldn't sleep. Tomorrow he'd face Victoria, risk his life to catch a killer. But tonight, something else gnawed at him, a detail he'd overlooked, a piece that didn't fit. He went to his study and pulled out Patricia's files, her death certificate, the hospital records, the toxicology report that had shown nothing unusual. Nothing unusual because they weren't looking for the right thing, he muttered, opening his laptop. Jack had identified a rare poison, a synthetic compound derived from certain plants, nearly undetectable unless specifically tested for. Richard began researching, following medical journal links, cross-referencing symptoms. Patricia's final days, the fatigue, the irregular heartbeat, the sudden collapse, all consistent with the poison Jack had identified. But something else caught his eye, a notation in Patricia's medical file from 3 weeks before her death. Patient reports new vitamins prescribed by nutritionist, improved energy levels initially, now experiencing return of fatigue. Nutritionist, Richard breathed. Patricia never mentioned a nutritionist. He dove deeper into Patricia's calendar, emails, records. There, 6 weeks before her death, an appointment with Dr. Vanessa Sterling, holistic nutrition specialist. Richard's hand shook as he ran a search. Dr. Vanessa Sterling had an office in Boston, glowing reviews, a professional website. But when he dug deeper, really deeper, he found something that made his blood run cold. The business license was only 8 months old. Before that, no trace of Vanessa Sterling existed. But the photo on the website, he compared it to photos of Victoria. Different hair color, different style, but the bone structure was identical. The eyes were the same. Oh my God. Richard's voice was barely audible. Victoria killed Patricia herself. He wasn't Victoria's 4th target. He was her 2nd attempt at the same target. She'd failed to get his money through Patricia, so she'd killed her and come after him directly. Jack burst into the study. Boss, we have a problem. I just got word. Anthony Russo's moved from the Revere warehouse. He's heading this direction with at least 3 other men. They're coming here. Richard stood. How much time do we have? Maybe an hour, maybe less. Jack's expression was grim. We need to evacuate the house, now. Richard's mind raced. Tomorrow's meeting with Victoria was a trap, not for her, but for him. She had no intention of reconciling. She'd sent Anthony to grab Lily while keeping Richard busy with the planned meeting. Wake everyone, Richard ordered. We're moving to the backup location. And Jack, call the FBI. Tell them we have evidence of multiple murders. It's time to bring in the authorities. What evidence? Richard pulled up the side-by-side photos of Victoria and Vanessa Sterling. Victoria didn't just kill 3 husbands. She killed my wife first. She's been after me from the beginning. The revelation hung in the air like a death sentence. This wasn't about a con gone wrong. This was personal. This was revenge for something Richard didn't even understand yet. Why? Jack voiced the question. Why target you specifically? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Richard grabbed his phone. "Get everyone to the cars. We move in 5 minutes." Upstairs, chaos erupted as Jack's team woke everyone. Sarah helped Lily pack. Marcus assisted Rebecca, who was having a breakdown. Grace held Denise's children close. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, her voice small and scared. "Somewhere safe," Sarah promised, though she wasn't sure anywhere was safe anymore. As they rushed to the waiting cars, Lily looked back at the beautiful estate, its windows glowing against the night. She'd felt safe there for just a little while. Now that safety was shattered, and the real danger was just beginning. Through the trees, in the darkness beyond the security fence, Anthony Russo watched the convoy of cars racing away. He smiled, pulling out his phone. "They're running," he told Victoria, "just like you said they would." "Good," Victoria's voice purred. "Let them run. I know exactly where Thornton's backup location is, and this time there will be nowhere left to hide." Richard's backup location was a secure facility in New Hampshire, 3 hours north. It was a former private school converted into a fortress. High walls, limited access points, security systems that would make Fort Knox jealous. But as they pulled through the gates at 4 a.m., exhaustion weighing on everyone, Richard received a call that changed everything. "Mr. Thornton, this is Special Agent Catherine Morrison, FBI. The woman who'd saved Marcus and Rebecca. We need to talk about Victoria Castellano." "I have evidence," Richard said immediately. "She killed my wife, Patricia. She's been targeting me specifically." "I know. We've been investigating her for 18 months. Morrison's voice was grave. "Mr. Thornton, Victoria Castellano isn't who you think she is." Richard felt the ground shift beneath him. "What do you mean?" "Her real name is Elena Volkov. She's Russian intelligence. Or she was before she went rogue. The 3 dead husbands? They were all connected to international finance, money laundering. She wasn't killing for inheritance. She was eliminating targets. Then why me? I'm a corporate lawyer, not... Your firm handled the Patterson case 5 years ago. You exposed a massive money laundering scheme that led to the imprisonment of Dmitry Volkov, Elena's father. He died in prison 6 months ago." Morrison paused. "Your wife's death wasn't collateral damage, Mr. Thornton. It was the beginning of Elena's revenge. She wanted you to suffer first, then die." Richard felt like he'd been punched. Patricia, sweet, innocent Patricia, had died because of a case he'd worked, a criminal he'd helped convict. "Why didn't you stop her?" Richard's voice shook with fury. "If you've been investigating for 18 months, we've been trying to catch her, but she's a ghost. The FBI, CIA, Interpol, we've all been hunting her. She's skilled, trained, and has resources we're still trying to track. Coming after you was her first mistake. She let emotion override training." "So what now?" Richard asked. "Do we wait for her to kill everyone I care about? No. Now we use you as bait. For real this time." Morrison's voice hardened. "Tomorrow's meeting. It happens. But the entire Bureau will be watching. We're going to end this, Mr. Thornton. One way or another." In the facility's main room, Richard gathered everyone to explain. Sarah, Grace, Lily, Denise and her children, Marcus and Rebecca, Jack's security team, they all deserved to know the truth. "Victoria, or Elena, isn't just a con artist," Richard began. "She's a trained intelligence operative seeking revenge. My firm helped send her father to prison 5 years ago. He died there. She's been systematically destroying my life ever since." Grace pulled Lily closer. "So this was never about Lily disrupting the wedding?" "The disruption gave Eleanor an excuse to escalate publicly. But she was already planning to kill me. Lily just accelerated the timeline." Richard looked at the little girl. "You didn't cause this, sweetheart. You exposed it before it was too late." "So the FBI's going to arrest her tomorrow?" Sarah asked. "They're going to try. But Elena's dangerous. If she suspects a trap, she'll vanish. We'll never find her, and she'll keep coming until she finishes what she started. Richard took a deep breath. That's why I need your help. What kind of help? Marcus asked warily. Elena thinks she's hunting me, but what if we hunt her instead? Richard pulled up a detailed map of Boston on a tablet. The meeting tomorrow. We know it's a trap, but what if we spring our own trap first? Jack shook his head. Boss, the FBI has this covered. The FBI will surround the coffee shop and wait for her to make a move. Standard procedure. But Elena's too smart for standard. Richard pointed to the map. She'll have escape routes, counter-surveillance, probably Anthony and his team ready to intervene. What she won't expect is for us to go after her base of operations while she's focused on me. The warehouse in Revere. Jack's eyes lit up with understanding. Exactly. While Elena meets me at the coffee shop, your team raids the warehouse. Find evidence, find her murder kit, find whatever she needs to prove she killed Patricia and the others. Richard looked around the room. The FBI gets their surveillance. We get justice. That's illegal, Marcus pointed out. Breaking and entering, tampering with evidence. I'm aware of the legal implications, Richard said dryly, which is why I'm not ordering anyone to do this. I'm asking for volunteers. I'm in, Jack said immediately. Me too, Sarah added. I started this mess. I'll help finish it. Sarah, you don't have training, Richard began, but I have motivation. Elena's trying to hurt people because of something I set in motion. Let me help make it right. One by one, others volunteered. Even Marcus, despite Rebecca's protests, agreed to help coordinate communications. Only Grace remained silent, holding Lily tight. You should go to London, Richard told her quietly, tonight. Before this all goes down, take the children and go. And leave you to face this alone. Grace shook her head. Mr. Thornton, you saved my daughter's life. You've protected us when you had no obligation to. I'm not running while you're in danger. Mama, Lily started. You and your cousins are going with Aunt Denise to a safe house nearby, Grace said firmly. But I'm staying. I'm seeing this through. Richard felt something in his chest tighten. Gratitude, admiration, something he hadn't felt since Patricia died. These people, these strangers who'd been thrown together by circumstance, had become something more. A team. A family. Okay, he said finally. Tomorrow morning, we end this. Together. As the group dispersed to prepare, Richard stood alone for a moment, looking at Patricia's photo on his phone. I'm going to make this right, he whispered. I promise you, Patricia. I'm going to make her pay for what she took from us. Outside the facility, hidden in the woods, a long-range camera captured every movement through the windows. The feed went directly to Elena Volkov's laptop. She watched Richard, watched the people he'd gathered around him, and smiled coldly. Tomorrow you lose everything, she murmured in Russian, just like you made me lose everything. And then, Richard Thornton, you die. The morning sun rose over Boston, casting long shadows across Tremont Street. Richard sat in his Mercedes 2 blocks from the thinking cup, his heart pounding. Special Agent Morrison's voice crackled through the earpiece hidden beneath his collar. We have eyes on all exits. 16 agents positioned around the perimeter. You're as safe as we can make you, Mr. Thornton. Safe is relative when meeting a trained assassin, Richard muttered. He checked his watch. 11:47 a.m. 13 minutes until his appointment with death. His phone buzzed. A text from Jack. Team in position at warehouse, waiting for your signal. Richard took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. 3 miles away in Revere, Jack's team surrounded the abandoned warehouse. Sarah crouched beside him, wearing a borrowed tactical vest that felt too heavy, too real. You sure about this? Jack asked quietly. Last chance to stay in the van. I'm sure. Sarah's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I need to see this through. Jack nodded, respecting her courage. On Thornton's signal, we go in fast and hard. FBI's warrant is solid. They've been tracking Elena for months. Anything we find is admissible." Sarah gripped the pepper spray Jack had given her, the only weapon he'd trust her with. Through the warehouse's grimy windows, she could see movement inside. Anthony Russo and at least 2 other men. Jack's radio crackled. "All teams stand by. Thornton's entering the coffee shop." Richard pushed through the door of the thinking cup, the smell of espresso hitting him immediately. The cafe was moderately crowded, exactly as planned. FBI agents posed as customers, reading newspapers, typing on laptops, providing coverage. Elena sat in the back corner, elegant in a cream-colored dress, her dark hair styled perfectly. She looked nothing like the cold-eyed bride from the church. She looked like someone you'd trust with your life, which made her infinitely more dangerous. "Richard," she smiled as he approached, "you came." "I said I would." He sat across from her, acutely aware of the recording device in his jacket. "Victoria, or should I call you Eleanor?" Her smile never wavered, but her eyes turned to ice. "So you know. I know your father died in prison because of a case I worked. I know you killed Patricia. I know you've been planning this revenge for years." Richard kept his voice conversational, calm. "What I don't know is why you think killing me will bring him back." "It won't." Elena sipped her latte delicately. "But it will make me feel better. You destroyed my family, Richard. My father was a good man. Your father laundered money for terrorists and drug cartels. He facilitated the deaths of hundreds of people." "He was my father!" For the first time, Elena's mask cracked. "And you took him from me. You stood in that courtroom and presented evidence you knew would kill him. Prison was a death sentence for a man his age. So you killed Patricia, an innocent woman who never hurt anyone." Richard's voice hardened. "You made me fall in love with you, planned to marry me, planned to murder me, all for revenge." "Yes." Elena's eyes glittered with malice. "And I was so close, Richard. So close to taking everything from you, just like you took everything from me. But then that stupid little girl stood up in that church, and you got suspicious. And now—" She shrugged elegantly. "Now we're here." "Now we're here," Richard echoed. He raised his coffee cup slightly. The signal. At the warehouse, Jack's team moved instantly. Flashbang grenades shattered windows. Doors burst open. Anthony Russo barely had time to react before Jack's team swarmed in. "FBI, hands where we can see them." Anthony reached for his weapon. A mistake. 2 agents tackled him hard, driving him to the concrete floor. The other men surrendered immediately, hands raised high. Sarah followed Jack inside, her eyes scanning the space. The warehouse was Elena's operations center, computers, surveillance equipment, files everywhere. But what made Sarah's blood run cold was the workstation in the corner, glass vials, syringes, chemical compounds in neat rows. "Jack!" Her voice shook. "Over here." Jack approached, his expression grim. "That's it. That's her murder kit." He was already photographing everything, documenting the evidence. "Bag it all. Get forensics here immediately." In a file cabinet, Sarah found something else, folders on each of Elena's victims. Patricia Thornton's photo stared up at her, along with detailed notes on her routines, her vulnerabilities, her medical history. "She planned it for months," Sarah whispered, reading the cold, clinical observations. "She studied Patricia like a science experiment." Nigh and beneath Patricia's file, folders for Richard, for Sarah herself, for Marcus, for Grace and Lily. Everyone in Elena's path had been catalogued, analyzed, marked for destruction. "This is enough," Jack said with satisfaction. "This is more than enough." Back at the coffee shop, FBI agents moved in as Elena realized what Richard had done. "You recorded this." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "You wore a wire. Yes. And your team is at my warehouse right now. Yes. Elena stood slowly, her hand moving into her purse. Every agent in the room tensed, hands on weapons. Don't! Agent Morrison called out, gun drawn. Elena Volkov, you're under arrest for multiple counts of murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy. Put your hands on your head. For a moment, Elena stood frozen. Then she laughed, a sound so cold it made the room temperature drop. You think you've won? You think arresting me changes anything? She looked at Richard with pure hatred. I may not get to kill you, but I've already destroyed you. Your wife is dead because of me. You'll never get her back. You'll live the rest of your life knowing she died because you were too self-righteous to let a guilty man go free. Richard stood, meeting her eyes directly. Patricia died because you're a monster. My father prosecuted criminals his entire career. He put away murderers, rapists, people who hurt the innocent, and every night he slept soundly, knowing he'd made the world a little safer. He stepped closer. I'll sleep soundly too, Elena, because I know Patricia would be proud that I stopped you, proud that no one else will die by your hand. Your father made his choices, you made yours, and now you'll live with the consequences. Agent Morrison moved in, handcuffs ready. Elena Volkov, you have the right to remain silent. Elena's hand darted into her purse. Agents shouted, but instead of a weapon, she pulled out a small glass vial, smashing it against her palm. The liquid absorbed instantly through her skin. No! Richard lunged forward, but it was too late. Elena smiled as she fell, her body convulsing. If I can't have revenge, I'll have peace. Tell my father, I tried. Medical personnel rushed in, but within 90 seconds, Elena Volkov, the woman who'd killed at least 4 people and terrorized countless others, was dead by her own poison. Richard stood over her body, feeling nothing but emptiness, not satisfaction, not relief. Just the hollow ache of knowing Patricia was still gone, and nothing, not justice, not revenge, not even Elena's death, would bring her back. Agent Morrison touched his shoulder gently. I'm sorry, Mr. Thornton. We wanted her to stand trial. I know. Richard turned away from the body. But at least it's over. 2 weeks later, Richard stood in the garden of his conquered estate. The investigation had concluded. The FBI had enough evidence from the warehouse to posthumously charge Elena with 4 murders and connect her to her father's criminal network. Patricia's death had been officially reclassified as homicide. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. Grace approached with Lily, both dressed for travel. The private jet to London waited at Hanscom Field. We're ready, Grace said quietly. Denise and the kids are already at the airport. Richard knelt down to Lily's level. You take care of your mama in London, okay? And remember, you're the bravest little girl I've ever met. You made one small mistake and it saved my life. Lily hugged him tight. Will we ever come home, Mr. Thornton? Someday, Richard promised. When you're older, when it's completely safe, you'll come back, and I'll be here waiting to hear all about your adventures. After they left, Sarah found Richard still standing in the garden. Penny, for your thoughts? She asked. Thinking about choices, Richard said. Elena chose revenge. Her father chose crime. Patricia chose to see the good in everyone, and it got her killed. But it also meant she lived a happy life, Sarah pointed out. She loved you. You loved her. That's not nothing. Richard smiled sadly. No, it's not nothing. Speaking of love, Sarah hesitated. Marcus and I talked. He's getting the annulment. His parents have disowned him for walking away from Rebecca's family connections. And we're taking things slow, really slow. Starting over like we're strangers getting to know each other. Sarah shrugged. I don't know if we'll work out, but I know I can't keep living in the past, trying to force something that maybe wasn't meant to be forced. That's wise, Richard said. Wiser than I've been. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "What will you do now?" Sarah asked. "Live," Richard said simply. "Patricia would want me to live, really live, not just exist." He pulled an envelope from his pocket, handing it to Sarah. "This is for you, and before you argue, it's not charity. It's a job offer. My firm needs a sharp paralegal who's not afraid to stand up for what's right." Sarah opened the envelope, her eyes widening at the salary figure. "Richard, this is fair compensation for someone with your skills and courage. Think about it." As Sarah left, Richard pulled out his phone, looking at Patricia's photo one last time. Then he opened a new contact he'd been avoiding, a grief counselor's number Agent Morrison had recommended. It was time to heal, time to move forward, time to honor Patricia's memory by living the kind of life she'd always wanted for him, full of purpose, connection, and hope. Behind him, Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway. "Dinner is ready, Mr. Thornton, and, sir, Miss Patricia would be very proud of you." Richard smiled, feeling the weight on his chest lift just a little. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I think she would be too." 6 months later, a letter arrived at Richard's office from London. "Dear Mr. Thornton, Lily is thriving at her new school. She's made friends, learned to love tea with lots of sugar, and has started writing stories about a brave man who saved her life. Grace found a wonderful job at your London office and is dating a very nice teacher named James. Denise's kids love being so close to cousins. We're safe, we're happy, we're home, even if that home is across an ocean. Lily wanted me to tell you that she's learned something important. Sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the most important moments. She made a mistake that day in the church, but it was a mistake that saved lives and stopped a bad person from hurting anyone else. She wanted you to know she's not ashamed anymore. She's proud that her innocent mistake changed the world, just a little bit, but in all the right ways. Thank you for giving us this chance at a new beginning. With gratitude and love, Grace, Lily, and Denise Johnson." Richard set the letter down, feeling tears prick his eyes. Good tears. Healing tears. On his desk sat a new photo, taken at the company picnic last month. Sarah and Marcus tentatively holding hands. Jack and his team laughing at some joke. Mrs. Chen smiling warmly. And Richard in the center, surrounded by the family he'd built from the ashes of tragedy. Life had dealt him a terrible hand. He'd lost his wife to a calculating killer. He'd faced death himself. He'd seen the darkest parts of human nature. But he'd also seen the brightest: courage from an 8-year-old girl, sacrifice from a struggling single mother, redemption from a woman who'd made a mistake out of heartbreak, and the possibility of love from a man who'd finally found his backbone. Patricia used to say that life wasn't about avoiding storms, it was about learning to dance in the rain. Richard picked up the phone and dialed the number for the youth centre in Dorchester. "Hello? I'd like to set up a scholarship fund for underprivileged children in memory of my late wife, Patricia Thornton. And I'd like the first scholarship to go to any child who's made a mistake but learned something valuable from it." Because if Lily Johnson had taught him anything, it was this: sometimes the most innocent mistakes lead to the most extraordinary changes. And sometimes the darkest moments reveal the brightest lights.